This person was brought on into the organization recently, and that person basically provided a lot of context to the AI platform that he was using and said, here's my job role, here's the organization I run, here's our current revenue, here's our average order value, here's our current trouble in terms of customer acquisition. Help me find a solution to this problem and recommend some companies that can actually do it. Turns out that the recommended answers that came with several resources that was created by OneIMS. We have a ton of content around manufacturing sector. We have webinars, ebooks, guides, so many resources that were in the answer section of it, that the particular person consumed the content, came across our website, scheduled a consultation, and had the conversation. And then much later in the conversation, it came up that how he ended up finding our company and why he thought we were able to possibly help him the most, since he was able to get a lot of the insight that he was looking for. Why do I say this? Because in the real world, actual customers are leveraging it to find real business solution to the problem, just like I was actually trying to do a personal problem. So with that said, I want to give the floor to Maria to kind of explain what is happening in the traditional search era and what happened in the traditional search era and how that AI has completely drastically changed that space altogether. And then we'll also try to push up the answers to the polls here as well.
Perfect. And just to mention, Sam, I have a similar story about you. Our kids went out for a walk and they found a tiny little turtle. We're not pet people, so I have no idea what to do with pets or what they need. And we took a picture of our new turtle. Her name is Butterscotch, in case anybody wanted to know. And it told us exactly what type of turtle it was, what we should feed it, how often we should change the water, all of these things that I would not have. I would have said, hey, let's go return it to the pond and don't deal with pets. But happily, Butterscotch is still around. She's been around now for about 2 months. So we have a pet turtle now. But now talking about what's changed, right? So again, we've been in this space for a while and a lot has changed. So if any of you have been in the SEO world, content creation, anything in the past, or at least been in charge of it for your companies, back in the day, so again, prior to 2023 and even before that, this is what our search result page looked like. Pretty clean. Yes, the ads have always been there. That's how Google makes a lot of money. But after that, it's just a couple, links, right? So what did people have to do? You have 10 placements and 1 through 10, then you go to page 2. But after that, you have to, as a user, you have to actually click on that link, go to that website, see if the content there meets what you were looking for. If not, come back, do a search, click on another link, and then go back and forth and do all of that, right? So you had to do that for a bit to do a lot of your research. So a lot of it was, just looking at it, 10, and from a SEO perspective of how do you rank there, right? That was it. You just have to make sure you got to one of those 10 links. And obviously the top links get the most click-throughs. And that's what you really wanted to go after, right? But today, if you do a search, and again, depending on what specific search you're doing, product, it'll all be slightly varied, right? But the biggest difference is that one, there's so much to look at on these pages. So you start with one thing. This is exactly the same search for the exact same query that we just looked at before, but now you have AI overviews, right? So the first thing that comes up is that you have ads as well. Okay, there's another placement of chunk of the space on that page that is taken up, right? You have people also ask. You've seen probably that little accordion that pops up and you can kind of keep adding and adding and adding. You also have, in this case, people also buy from. So now Google is actually telling us, like, here's other places based on what you search where people buy this thing or this product or where they get the service done. You might have, if it's a product that you have, you might have images, right? So you might have images of the products embedded. You might have videos. You might have a Reddit discussion forum that pops up. And then now we're seeing ads in the middle of that search result page. So you have that, and then you have some knowledge panels on the side. You have so many things that you're seeing in this new page, right? So it's a lot for us to look at as a end user. And a lot of what you're seeing here is that 0-click result preference, right? So now you're searching for something, you get that AI overview. That's what I was looking for. I'm good to go. Where again, before, to get your answer, even if a blog ranked for something or other, you would go over there and then read and make sure that was what it was. But that may not necessarily be the case today because you might get your answer right off the bat on that AI overview.
Yeah. So I think I was also just looking at the polls in terms of the usage of the platform. Certainly, ChatGPT is the dominant platform of choice for people on a day-to-day basis, and I was surprised to see 76% of you actually use this on a daily basis as well, which is impressive. So certainly a lot of usage of AI platforms, and none of you are foreign to this concept that we're describing here. People are becoming even more lazy in their search behavior, right? They want answers instantly. They don't want to have to go read 15, 17 blogs to find the answers. They want quick and precise and relevant information so that they can take business actions or their personal whatever choices that they're trying to make. And I'm also just surprised to see ChatGPT is not only the preferred platform, that's the one platform that most people are using. I'm surprised that Bing is not even one of the ones that people selected, and also Perplexity, which curious to see why people just haven't adapted that. And then also, it didn't seem like people have seen any sort of big changes to their traffic. But what we've noticed in the recent days is the kind of slight decline in traffic for many of our customers that has won the content game in the past, especially for long tail search queries that were just top of funnel awareness content. So content like what is electropolishing, or informational questions like that, that people are just asking for answers. The questions, those kind of questions are not bringing the type of results or traffic as they used to, because people are getting quick answers and they're just leaving the platform, right? They got what they wanted. So just overall content strategy change, which we'll touch on it. So that's also a slight trend that we're seeing. And I'm also kind of curious to see what are the type of content areas where you have now seen that traffic trend change. So with that, right, basically now we're in this AI era. We all are seeing the change happens. So here, what's the big takeaway? It's no longer Google the dominant player when it comes to search. We have to be omnipresent at every platform. So it's not just, hey, back in the day, all you had to worry about was if I can figure out how to please Google, right? The number one priority most people thought about was how do I please Google? And whether that meant creating content that answers Google's best practices for SEO, optimizing based on the Google's algorithm changes and updates. That's all most people were mostly focused on. Now with all these other platforms are actually getting a lot more user adoption, right? ChatGPT alone now has over 440 million users on a weekly basis. That's a drastic increase in terms of the user base, which definitely means Google is certainly losing some of that market share that it had. But it doesn't mean Google is completely out of the picture. There's still 9 billion searches that happens in Google daily, which is still number one dominant player. But what we need to start thinking about is how do we start thinking about diversifying our content strategy and our overall marketing approach to make sure that we're not just trying to pigeonhole ourselves into just this one box of Google. How do we diversify our traffic sources? How do we get found in answer engines by implementing and executing content and marketing strategy that's going to set us up set us up for success. So these are probably some of the most prominent search platforms that we're using. There's definitely a lot more of them, and some of these platforms keep changing name, right? Because I think Microsoft, even though they adopted ChatGPT, but they also have their own Copilot that they rolled out, and there's all these other platforms that are coming up, right? So AI overview is definitely becoming an expectation of a searcher, and LLMs are actually giving people an opportunity to do very much conversational queries, right? You don't have to be very specific about any of those, because natural language, right? When you're just naturally talking to the search engine, whether through actually an actual prompt or just speaking to it or uploading an image, the platform is able to interpret the information that you're looking for and be able to give you the answer. So you need to tailor your marketing strategy to please all these platforms and not just focus heavily on just Google alone. And then the last but not least is the omnipresence, right? You have to be omnipresent. It's more so, it's more important today than ever before, right? What I mean by that is back in the day, you probably have heard of stories of how Facebook may have changed algorithm updates, and all of a sudden some of the ads that used to be getting a ton of conversion and traffic for ad marketers, immediately their ads stopped performing, and some of them even had drastic changes in their revenue. Same thing happened with people who would just focus heavily on Google algorithms and also suffered a lot just from that. Now with all these platforms having to be where we need to be present, you can't just only focus on one tactic or one strategy. We have to be diversified and be omnipresent across all platforms to make sure that we can differentiate ourselves and be successful in our ability to get found. So with that, I wanted to kind of explain the way that we're approaching overall marketing strategy in general. So we have coined this framework that we call our growth formula framework. One of the things that we've learned early on, I said we've been in the space for over 20 years. One of the things we learned early on when the digital marketing was kind of becoming a thing, if you're in an established market, if there was existing demand for your product or services, all you needed to focus on was in-market audience who are actively searching for your product or services, getting found at the time of search, which mostly meant capturing the existing demand of the market by using the primarily two mediums, which was like two tactics, right? One was search engine optimization, and the other one was Google search ad or paid ads, right? Those were the primary mediums that you had to focus on to get found when your prospective customers are searching. Those are still very, very effective, but they're losing the steam in terms of how people are actually discovering information or discovering businesses or product or service that they want to consume. What that meant is you need to diversify your strategy beyond what is actually possible through just the search alone approaches. What I mean by that is you have to be focused on how do we create awareness across the customer journey that you're able to create interest from your prospective customers much early in the sales process, much early in their customer journey process. This cannot be done just by focusing on keyword specific strategy or just technically optimizing some of the pages and just to trick the search engines to maybe prioritize your website or get found in a search query. This really means understanding the customer journey from unaware to problem aware to solution aware to brand aware to consideration and decision. This means that customer, as they go through that entire customer journey, understanding the different type of questions that they may have as they're trying to figure out the solution to the problem, or even try to articulate what that problem is, learning all of those things and creating content that really answers those questions and getting found across all the search platforms, right? And then also distributing that content that's getting created across every medium that's possible, whether that's through podcasts, YouTube, social platforms, or any other mediums where people are consuming information. You want to be there, both organically and when possible, leveraging paid medium to increase the reach and effectiveness of those content. So this half of that equation addresses the acquisition of leads and traffic and getting people to know who you are and to discover your product or services. But this does not stop. This does not mean that you're now close them into business. This is exactly where now you need to figure out, how do I engage the person that's coming to the website, manage, segment, nurture, score, and prioritize those leads and prospects and opportunities until they become sales ready, and then also make a purchase. So this means that you have to have technology and tools in place that monitors the entire customer journey from start to finish, and then actually being able to segment them using intent signals, buyer behavior, website behavior, or any of those other things that they can leave behind as digital fingerprints, to using those to be able to track and segment them and nurture them as long as possible until they become paying customers. Once they become customer, your job is still not done, because you have to continue to tailor them with information to get most value out of the product or service that they purchase, right? Whether that mean customer services, a better customer experience, or in delivery, or even giving them better access to information to utilize the product or service that they bought from you. So this framework is what exactly that we're implementing for customers to increases the benefit and results of their overall marketing effectiveness, and not just pigeonholing into just one tactic or strategy that just focus on one area of and this core marketing methodology. Maria, anything you would like to add to that?
Again, more and more what we're seeing too is that you really have to focus on everything. And there's even interesting research that basically, even I believe Google puts it out, that oftentimes, people will go on a buying mode, whether it's for a service, anything provider, even a product, right? And they come up with their little list of, here's 5 companies or 5 things, where I can buy or get this service. And ultimately, eventually, even if they go back and do more and more searches and find other resources and other potential providers, services, etc., they come back to that original list. So again, a lot of times too, it might seem that we just have to focus on one area of like capturing the demand of people who are actively, ready to, buy or, get a software or this or that. But it's also just even awareness. A lot of it is like, did you even show up the first time they looked into this topic? Because that name of your company actually starts to follow them, even if they may not come to your website the first time around, or interact with case studies or different things that we typically would look at. So again, it's really focused on, hey, we don't just want to focus on one area, but we got to be present. We got to be able to capture those that are ready to go, but also make sure that we do a good job at retaining and growing existing leads and customers.
Exactly. And so before we get some tactical insights on what you can do to win this game in the AI era, we have an additional poll that we're going to push out. So you should see another poll that comes up. Wanted to get a feedback on how you're leveraging AI from a content strategy, content creation and execution, and whether or not what you're seeing as far as the results from that content being produced by AI tools. So I'll give the floor to you, Maria, to kind of talk through how people need to think about content creation in the AI world.
Yeah, definitely. So this is a question I probably get every day, because yes, things have changed, right? And even the question is, does SEO even matter today, right? Because if people are going to ChatGPT or anything, why do I care about my website anymore? Is this something I even need? Because it's not dependent, the results are not, ChatGPT doesn't give you, the website links. It just gives you a summary and a name, and that's all you need, right? But it's not necessarily, what do I need, is what do I need to change from what you may have been doing prior, right? So the good news is that a lot of these changes are things that basically help us across the board. Are not, it's not exclusive to just AI is changing, I have to do this, but it's also, hey, the algorithms are changing, people's habits are changing, and all of this actually works hand in hand. So when we talk about content, and one of the first things that has changed over time is the focus on authoritative content. And what does that mean? Back in the day, it's just blogs was it, and that was the big thing. And then we had ebooks, like anybody could write an ebook. Now, if you think about it, even probably yourselves, right? I don't really want to read an ebook, download an ebook. I need something, if I'm going to give you my information in exchange, it has to be something worthy, something that I can't find in a blog post somewhere else, right? So authoritative content, it's, guide, something that's unique to you. So data that you might have about how your customers are using your platforms, your services, the challenges they're seeing in their industries. We often work with clients on a lot of these types of content pieces where they pull their internal data. Now they have something unique that they can share with their audience, something that shows that they're obviously a player in the field. So it makes a lot of difference in terms of, is this actually worthy content, right? Original research report, everything, right? And think about it too. This is something that Google actually wants. Their helpful content update. What does that mean? It has to be helpful. And even their update to their EAT, if you're familiar with that, they added expertise. So we need to share all of this, right? We're experts. It gives us the authority. That's the A in EAT, right? All of this is part of satisfying Google, the old SEO we'll call it, but also, what's new and what's going to help us in this AI era. The next thing is intent-based content. And what do we talk about? Again, this is something that has changed over time as well, right? Because back in the day, back in the day, I would say, you would pick a keyword, write a blog post or, a page, and then it would rank. Fairly easy, right? Now it's not just about that, but there's so many things, so many factors that go into whether this piece does anything or not, right? And intent is a big part of it. So a lot of times what we do is we look at content is like, well, why are people actually coming here, right? So we want to optimize for, what are they looking for, right? Is it solving a problem? Is it answering a question, right? So matching the query that somebody's using to the content type and the content style. So oftentimes we might say, hey, you know what, for this type of content piece, it requires an image, right? So if you're showing a how-to, it's hard to visualize it if you don't have an image, right? Or a video showing the process might be even better. So for example, let's say I mentioned electropolishing. Sometimes it's hard to like, what is this process? It's a, very detailed, specific niche process in the manufacturing industry. So it's like, how does it work and how is it different from this to this? So using visuals, again, satisfying that intent is important. So we don't just want to write content that's just content, right? But think about how else, you as a user, what is the best content to serve the type of query? What else will it require? Um, so that again, answering a lot of question-based content. So you probably often see that, and we always want to make sure we incorporate that into our content so that you're answering questions about that topic right in that topic, right? Because again, imagine you as a user, you research a topic, you probably have a follow-up question to that. And if you provide it in that same blog post, page, whatever you're working on, now you've provided a good customer or visitor experience by having a nice in-depth content piece that answers their questions. Then journey map content. So again, this is something that if we go back to that full customer journey, right? People are always going to look at everything that they, do to their research before they sign up for a service, a tool, or approach a company about a service, right? So blogs are still great for building awareness, but you need to have those guides and comparison tools, all kinds of content that's going to help in that sales process because they will come back to it. I know, and Sam probably will attest to this. We always have clients or prospects that come through and they're like, oh, well, I looked at all your case studies and I watched the video from such and such company. They're very similar to us. So even though we might think people don't look at a lot of these things, they actually do. And again, it just varies on where they're at in that process in their sales journey. But imagine if we don't have that content type in your whole content scheme or content types that you're producing for a company, you're potentially missing out on giving that visitor or prospect, what they're looking for. Interactive content. So this is, again, a big shift. Again, like we said, back in the day, blogs, and then, oh, well, you need to have images with blogs. So, okay, let's make sure every blog has an image. Great. That was, enough to satisfy search engines. And we thought that was good user experience, right? But everyone's gotten much savvier. So having just text on a page is no longer enough. And having just a PDF ebook is not necessarily all that exciting anymore to a lot of people. So what does that mean? So they're looking for something unique. So interactive quizzes, assessments, a lot of what we work with clients is like, is there an ROI calculator where we can create? Is there something that we can create unique to you that requires somebody to come to you? So it's not, something that they can get anywhere else, right? And it's a tool, that they can use. So for example, we have clients who have custom dog crates or animal crates. They have to come to be able to enter their specific dimensions, the size of dog, etc., and then they get something, right? It's not something that you're going to get on a PDF table per se. So again, a lot of these things are unique things that are one, great for user interaction, right? People like to click around and enter numbers and this and that and see a result that's unique and tailored to them. That makes them come back. Two, from the SEO world, we've always known that these are things that people will naturally link to and share, and they're worthy for backlinking. So again, these are always great to have in our back pockets and kind of the way that people are wanting to consume content and find useful things on our sites. Programmatic content. So this is for enterprise companies, especially. This is great and something that we help again for very large companies. But a lot of times, you might have a business that has 100, 200 locations nationwide, and it's like, well, how do we get to that mass scale? To help them, right? So a lot of that requires, what we call programmatic content, which might be pushing out at a large scale, landing pages for a specific, conference, location pages because they have, 100, 200 locations across the country. Obviously, they still have to be unique. They still have to be personalized to those visitors coming to those pages. But again, it's, it does, it's kind of at the base is that they are large scale SEO, content types. Think about like franchises. We do that a lot too, because same franchise, different location, but it's slightly different content to fit that market or that territory. Um, but obviously something that's changing over time. Doing content again, putting in all of FAQs, everything like that is something that even manuals and support is kind of the new way to create large scale content quality.
Yeah.
Anything to
Yeah, a
add?
couple of things I would just add. So as we were talking about, right, AI answer engines are providing a lot of information that are just right there. People can just get the answers and they leave, and they don't necessarily need to click through to go anywhere else to for additional resources or anything like that. But if you start creating interactive content, what it allows you to do is gives the researcher an opportunity or a reason to come to visit the website that you have, and that brings the traffic that most people are now claiming they are seeing a decline, right? So especially if you're creating resources and tools that actually gives them a reason to come back to your website, that increases the likelihood of a website visit, increases the engagement rate on your site, kind of what Maria alluded to. It also gives reason for other people to link back. Ultimately, it also helps in the customer journey in making a purchase decision. So we're talking about assessment. So we're using assessment. We have a growth readiness assessment we made available that we promote. If you look on our website, and maybe John can chat one of the links to it, we're using an assessment for people to come and take a quiz that allows them to self-assess. As long as they're giving objective answers, they'll get a very objective score on how well are they performing as a business, right? In terms of areas of opportunities where they can improve. We also have an ROI calculator that we're using. That's one of the top performing pages on our website that people go and continuously play around with it to figure out what could they project in terms of revenue if they were to increase conversion or traffic or any of those things. So think of tools that you can make available for your customers to make purchase decisions that you can, right? You can control that customer experience process by giving them tools and resources. A couple of ways that you can leverage these tools to increase conversion. Imagine that you have a product recommendation engine. So we're talking with a client of ours who actually make custom poly bags. They make poly bags that are used for food applications as well as in pet foods and other dry goods use cases. Depending on whether it needs to be shelved on a dry goods that sits on a shelf versus something that sits in a freezer versus any other storage conditions, there's a different type of films and everything that you would have to use. Imagine you create an interactive tool that says, tell us what application you have, what kind of food you use, what's the storage, what's the shelf life, and then we'll recommend the right type of packaging that you need to use. And then at the end of that packaging recommendation quiz, they get a recommendation on the type of materials you need to use, type of conditions that they can store in, what may be an average cost per piece that they can budget for. And then also next step is like send this information to your colleagues and then ask for their name, email, plus the information about their colleagues' name and emails. All of a sudden, you give them something of use, you generate a lead from the person that was using the quiz. They're also adding value to their team by sharing that resource with the rest of the team members in that organization. All of a sudden you just generated a qualified sales conversation. Right now you can pick up the phone and call and say, Mr. Prospect, I noticed you're using our interactive product recommendation tools. I'm curious to learn what exactly is the project you're working on. Could we help you kind of solidify this project or plan? So that's the kind of use cases, right? You want to create tools that actually gives more value to your customers, and giving those things away for free in exchange for their information, not just creating more blogs or ebooks, right? But we still want to create content that are still helpful and useful, and making it ultimately available to them as much as possible. And then speaking of programmatic, some of the things that you need to think about is, are there, like Maria mentioned, right? Are there first party data that you have? Could you create a standardized page template with the specific rules on how that content should be structured? And could you then feed that template your content sources, and then whatever the AI model that you want to leverage for content creation, feed that information into your choice CMS system, right, content management system, to dynamically create pages at scale that feeds the relevant information that is authentic, unique, that from your data points, but also answers the questions of questions that people are asking any search engine. So think of all these as tactics that you can implement at scale. You couldn't have done some of these things in the past without the right tools. and without a large team, you're able to execute some of these things at a much faster pace with very limited resources. And even this interactive presentation we built, we used an AI tool to actually create this entire thing, and we didn't actually build it from scratch. So that's the future we're living in, right? The ability to execute marketing efforts is much easier today than ever before. So more tactical things that you need to think about. Once you address the content priority and what type of content you need to think about creating, and now it's more so how do you actually optimize it for not just Google, but also for AI engines. Go ahead, Maria.
Yeah. So again, we talk about AI and Google, but technically, if you're doing the right thing, you're going to satisfy both. So that's good news. So you don't have to think about what I do for Google, what do I do to show up in ChatGPT or whichever other tool you might be using. And we talk about what good content should look like, right? So it's no longer just, okay, keyword blog, but, okay, now we have some interactive, we're, answering questions within our content that are related to this topic. We have maybe a video or images, a graphic, process map, whatever might make sense for your content there, right? So the next part is, sometimes we have really good content, but if it's not structured well, it's not going to be possibly found, right? And if it's not found, then nobody's going to see it, right? Or it's not done in the best way possible that makes it harder for search bots, whether it's from a ChatGPT bot or a Google bot, right, to come and assess our content. So you have to look at your content and make sure that you're doing all the technical aspects correctly. So this is something that we spend a lot of time with clients, and obviously everyone has a different website. There's some limitations to some platforms, and sometimes they're easy to fix, sometimes not so much. But things you have to think about to improve your visibility. One, what we call structured data schema markup. So this is just HTML code that goes in the back. Nobody actually sees it, so your visitor doesn't see that there's additional code. But that basically makes it much easier for obviously Google bots, but also even AI engines, because that's what they read, right? They look at the same things on our pages on our websites, and it can tell them what this page is about. So if you have a recipe, it'll say this is recipe, this is a video right here. There's this. If you have products, for example, highly important. How your products are showing up is going to be based on it says this is the product, this is the rating of this product, this is the price. This is a shipping cost, all of the things that you see in the front end, if they're not tagged properly, if you don't have that structured data, it probably won't know what it is and you get skipped over. Plus, if you want to do ads and all kinds of things too, these are things that are required, right? So making sure that that's there, whether it's simple things like your business address. So, if you want to make sure people know your address, your phone number right off the bat, you have to make sure that that's done. If there's products on your pages, if it's video content, whatever it is, there's always opportunities to use structured data to make it more accessible. Mobile and core web vitals. Again, this is a report that now it's been out for a while, and if Google put it out, it's a tool within or a report within Google Search Console, and it tells you how your website is performing on mobile devices, desktop devices as well. And why we care about mobile is that Google, for a while now, has been looking at optimization or mobile indexing first. So they'll look at how well your website does on a mobile device and then provide rankings or assessment based on that and not just your desktop. And I know sometimes they're like, well, my audience is only on desktops because we're B2B, so our clients don't come to us using a mobile device. That's for B2C. Yes, that might be true. However, Google uses mobile indexation first. So regardless of whether your visitors are mostly from desktop, you still need to care about that mobile aspect. And then Core Web Vitals, it gives you a very detailed, highly technical reports. It does require a developer to assess, but it gives you that sense of, is our website doing well? Is it taking too long to load? Are there specific pages that are having issues that we need to address? Again, making sure that you do your best to keep those numbers, those scores looking good is going to improve your ability to show up in both Google and also these search engines or AI tools as well. Crawlability, again, something that we sometimes forget, that our websites are accessible to search engines, and same thing, right? So Google is a bot that does come and crawl your website. AI tools have bots that come and crawl and do all kinds of research and synthesize it for us in a little window or whatever platform they're in. So we have to make sure that we have an active XML sitemap, which is basically here's a whole map of all our pages on our website that is constantly refreshed. So believe it or not, a lot of people don't have one sometimes, so that's a bad sign. And again, if you're making substantial changes to your site, we want to make sure that we resubmit it, we send it back to Google and say, hey, look, we have all these pages, come back and look at all of them because we've made a significant change to them. And voice and conversational queries. So again, a lot of what we're doing, and this has been, kind of a shift. We're even on product pages. I know a lot of times like, well, why do we have to add FAQs and things on our product pages? Well, because people do ask questions about your products. If you go look about your products, for example, people might be asking like, can it connect to this? Does it integrate with X? So you have to think about all that type of research that somebody might be doing about your product or service and create it right on your pages. So making sure that you address, again, what types of voice searches if they're using, instead of typing out a question, if they're using, just talking to their phones to ask a question, what are they asking, right? What are those people, people also ask questions, right? Make sure that that's part of our content in there, and that you format it accordingly, right? And then AI readable content structure, so semantic HTML. So again, this is what, again, very technical, but what we're talking about is when you put your content on a page, does it properly, code it so that it's easy to access, right? So if you have no header tags, if they're all out of order or they're all the same, sometimes we see that we're like, okay, well, everything is exactly as important. Again, it doesn't help, search engines understand the content of your page. So think about, yes, we have great content, but once you put it on a page, is it properly structured so that it can be, consumed, digested, segmented, dissected into pieces? And again, if you were to look at the code of your page, can it be separated nicely and put into pieces, right? So if you have content, is it a table? And does it say it's a table? If it's a bulleted list, is it labeled bullet list as opposed to, sometimes you see things, right? We see what it looks like, but if it's not coded properly in the back end, bots don't know that, right? If they look at what's around the HTML, and if it's not in your HTML, it's not going to help us in that sense. So again, making sure that this technical aspect is paired with your content strategy, creating that new content that's more helpful, that's authoritative, that's first party driven, unique experience or expertise you're providing is going to be huge for us.
Perfect. And I was just looking at the polls and the responses we're getting for this second poll that we've had. We asked if you're leveraging AI for content creation. Almost 59% of you said you are. That's a pretty high percentage of you. And then the number one platform of choice for creating content is ChatGPT. That's almost 91% of you. And in terms of results, it's mixed results. Majority of you are actually seeing mixed results, whether or not if it's actually increasing. But about 26% of you think the traffic has increased from the content being produced. So one thing we wanted to kind of highlight on the content creation side of leveraging AI. So thing to keep in mind, ask yourself the question, is the content I'm asking AI to create, is this something AI creates in 15 seconds? And if so, is it just regurgitating what's already available on the web, or is it using a unique point of view or some unique approach or methodology that your business has? Is that being incorporated into this entire content created by AI, right? So if the answer to the question, if it creates it in 15 seconds and it's not using anything unique or unique value proposition or your unique point of view or anything like that, then that's vanilla content. It's not going to help you at all because you're just regurgitating something that people have already said about that same topic. So that's where, going back to what Maria was mentioning, you need to really be bringing a lot more value to the context. Certainly, you can use AI for ideation. You can use it for probably helping you create some outlines, maybe even optimize for better readability by using AI to say, hey, make it fifth grade or seventh grade level reading level. So you can use some of those features, and maybe sometimes even using for truncating, especially if there's some word count limitations or anything that you're trying to hit. That's all possible, but you don't necessarily want to be creating content just by asking and prompting AI to do it. Some of the practices that we're implementing in our organization, right? We touched on intent-based content and authoritative content. We're performing interviews with our clients and their subject matter experts. We are coming up ahead of time with topics and queries that our their search engines and AI platforms are actually bringing up as topics people are asking. We're providing those topics and questions ahead of time to our subject matter experts. They come prepared, answer a question in a matter of 10, 15 minutes, and then that transcription turns into a multiple form of content. Think of it this way: an average person, maybe not me, I speak at about 200 words per minute, but average person speaks about 140 words per minute. So if you speak for about 10 minutes on a particular topic, that's about 1,500 words of real or organic and authentic content. Imagine you take that transcript and then now feed that into your AI writing platform of choice. And then you give additional prompt on resources and links that you can provide, right? You can say, hey, don't link to my competitors. Do not reference anything my competitor would share, and only link from these reputable third-party websites. And here's the possible page templates and H1s and H2s and keywords that I want to incorporate. And here's the actual transcript of my call. Use that to create the content. Now, all of a sudden, you're leveraging AI to create content at scale, and you're not having to have a subject matter expert spend hours actually thinking about writing and sitting there and writing, right? And also, it speeds up the approval process, because if you use your subject matter expert to come up with that answers to those questions, they've already approved what needs to be said. So you can be almost confident that content is written with the actual expertise of that subject matter expert, right? So you don't necessarily even need to go back to them for review, because as long as you're in line with what was answered, you actually got that content already approved, right? Speed of execution is more important today than ever before. You can't sit on a blog post for 4 weeks to publish. You have to be able to get things published as fast, right? And now with AI, you can either repurpose those answers into short form videos that you can leverage for all social platform of choice, and then also create short form text posts from that same video as well, right? So leveraging AI is definitely a good use case, but be very, very smart in terms of how you using it, right? You don't want to be just doing what everybody else is doing, because that's just going to put out a bunch more vanilla content and not going to help you in any way in terms of outperforming your competitor. So I am keeping an eye on my clock, and it seems as though we're coming up on pretty close here. So I want to be as efficient in conveying some of this additional information. So certainly, right, in terms of now from a data point, like we're talked about just the shift in change. We talked about why we need to diversify our approach, right? If you ask any investor, what's the best strategy for investment, right? Like they would tell you, diversify your investment portfolio. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, which is so true in marketing today than ever before, right? You can't just put all things into just SEO. You got to think about across the AI platforms and everywhere people are discovering information, right? That's across any platform of choice. And then obviously nurturing them across the entire customer journey and tracking. So this is where data collection becomes an important factor in AI as well, right? Looking at important information about the AI visibility, especially now with the zero-click searches happening. People are querying, they're finding answers, they're not clicking through and coming. So you cannot just judge your performance of your overall content by just the organic traffic that's coming to your website, because we're seeing a lot more direct traffic. We're seeing a lot of those referral traffics that are coming from ChatGPT and other platform in our Google Analytics for clients. So looking at other key performance indicators other than just keyword positions or traffic, and then also starting to track intent, right? Because you want to start to look at the intent of the searches, right? Like there's informational, navigational, commercial, and transactional intent that people have. So you need to look at the type of intent that people have when they're making those searches and figuring out, do we answer those particular topics, right? And having the data collected about the intent signals that are actually being produced by the websites that you have, right? Your tracking tools. And then also authority metrics. Maria mentioned EAT. Some of these things don't necessarily have an actual score, but you can actually start to figure out, well, do we have our authority score in terms of our domain authority? Has it been increasing? Are we getting brand mention in reputable websites? So more than ever before, your reputation is becoming increasingly more important, right? Because you want to make sure that you're not only creating and publishing content on your own your own website and social platforms, you want to be contributing content to third-party websites, whether that be industry journals and publications, and being intentional about getting brand mention in places where your consumers, your buyers are actually consuming information, because that gives you brand reputation. Also, AI platforms are leveraging those as a way to verify or validate your credibility and your claims, right? And you want to do that. So authority metrics, that's an important metric you want to measure as well, right? And overall content performance, you want to be monitoring how well is your content performing across all platforms? Certainly in the form of AI search overviews and AI results, right? You want to see how well it's performing in those places as well. So those are some data and technology related things that you need to keep in mind in this new world of AI. And then I'll have Maria kind of highlight kind of the KPIs, because I think what we're also seeing, right? Most marketers, when you think about it, the marketing leaders have some KPIs. They're like, hey, how much is our traffic? Has the traffic is trending up or down? What's our conversion percentage? What's the quality of our leads? What's the opportunity created? How many deals do we close? And when it comes specifically for SEO, they might ask, what's your keyword position, number of keywords we rank? What's our keyword compared to how many more keywords do we have in comparison to our competitors? What's our domain authority? Those were kind of KPIs that most people were measuring. But today, now you need to start thinking beyond those. So I'll let Maria quickly highlight some of the things that you need to be measuring from a KPI standpoint.
Yeah, definitely. So again, when we go back to SEO, right? So what were those traditional rank, if you got your monthly SEO report, what would be in there, right? Okay, well, you're ranked for 220 keywords, these in position 1 to 3, these in position, etc., right? Backlink quantity, or you increase backlinks. You had 2,000 page views and your click-through rate was this. And that's how, the old SEO, that's all you needed to worry about. But now, there's a shift, right? That search result page has changed how it looks, what people do. Again, there's zero click. They might find that answer directly from your blog on that overview and not click through, right? So it might not be traffic necessarily, but visibility. So again, now we start seeing reports of how often do we, as a website, as a company, as a client, come up in various AI searches, right? Or for queries, how often are we able to be seen there? Obviously, the more the better, and that gives us that first visibility of us as a company. Intent match. So again, this is something that's probably going to be evolving coming up soon, but looking at who's coming to what page and what intent are they having. So what are the queries that are driving them? So we use Google Search Console a lot to identify that, hey, people coming to this page are looking for this and our content doesn't match that. We got to refocus our content to better satisfy that, right? Authority, I think this is something that's a very big thing that again wasn't part of SEO before, where again we just relied on, does this blog rank, does it do well, does it have the right keywords, okay, good, right? But it's also about the authority of your company as a whole. So are we seeing growth in people searching for your company name? That's a big thing, right? Because your company has to continuously build its name out there, and the ideal goal would be to become, like Kleenex. If somebody thinks about your industry, your service, your product, you got to be, not facial tissues, you got to be Kleenex. And that's where you want to go to. User engagement, same thing here. Again, are people coming, staying, visiting multiple pages? That's a good user experience. And all of these things are what's going to help you there, right? So just to give you a quick story, I know we're almost out of time, but I had a client come and say, hey, how come we don't show up for top, this type of company in ChatGPT, right? And again, all these tools are looking at everything across the web, not just your website, right? So they might have a really good service that they provide, but guess what? They have 0 Google reviews. They don't have any reviews on any of the software sites. They're not mentioned on Forbes or anything where their competitors are, right? So even if you were manually doing that research, right, would you go and say the top company is one without reviews, without, mentions on Forbes and big websites, the one without, any reviews on, Capterra, G2, Software Advice? Probably not, right? So again, yes, our website and our product and our service might be great and we're highly optimized, but these AI tools are going to look at everything across the web. So the whole omnipresence aspect is really key here in terms of what to look for. And yes, visibility. Are we doing good with our content? Is our authority as a brand increasing? And are we doing a good job at that user engagement when they come through? It's kind of
So here's the big myth answer, right?
Yes. So again, a lot of this is something that comes up all the time. Is SEO dead, right? No, it is not actually. It's still essential. It's something that, again, imagine if you had no website, no content. How would you show up in those AI tools? Where would they go to find information about your services or your brand? Right? Nowhere, right? So in fact, actually, AI is going to help us, or push us to do better SEO, right? Because we want to address, again, people search differently on AI tools than they do in the general Google search page. So making sure our content, our website addresses all of that is going to be important, right? And if you look at the metrics, yes, all of these AI tools, we just even took our poll, right? We all use them every day, but Google still processes, a ton of searches a day. So you still need to worry about, how does Google view my website and what is good SEO today? And again, quality content, and we talk about this all the time. It's not so much about, oh, should I be putting out a blog every day? It's like, well, if it's really good, yes. If it's not good, no. Or sometimes, we have clients who have really, really old content. It's like, you know what? It's time to get rid of it because having a lot of bad content is probably worse than having no content. So quality content is really going to be important. So again, back in the day, keyword match the page, you're good to go. That's all you needed to worry about. That was traditional SEO. Then, again, we moved on to core web vitals, a little bit push from Google, algorithm updates. Okay, now you have to have, good user experience on your site. You have to be mobile optimized. You have to get good quality content. But now it's okay, we still have to do all of that, right? But now we have to build our authority, our expertise. We need to actually worry about, hey, do we actually bring something new, something unique to our content, to what we're offering? And is our content formatted uniquely to help these AI tools and Google and the bots to find it? And is it the right intent? Are we, creating the right content to fit that need of that visitor and user? So again, no, it is not dead. It's actually evolving, and it's something that we'll continue to see, and we just need to adapt and make changes across the board.
Most certainly. And obviously, we didn't have a lot of time to be able to answer questions. There were some questions around like what tools are we using? There's a lot of tools. We did not get into some of the tools in our tech stack. There's a lot of different tools that we're leveraging and experimenting with. We're not recommending any particular tool, but Xfunnel, SEMrush, Rivalflow, and a few of these tools are actually having specific sections for AI performance, basically brand sentiment. It gives you a score for how well is your brand performing in AI searches, or at least the sentiment about the brand. There's also a couple of free SEO scores. I saw HubSpot also has an AI, grader. If you just go Google search HubSpot's AI grader, it's not 100% perfect, but it actually kind of gives you a high level overview of how is the branding being perceived by AI platforms. But there's certainly some other tools that are available that actually could be just setting up your brand keywords, topics, persona, all of those things, and we'll give you kind of a regular update on how well you're performing in AI search. Overall, right, some key takeaway here. Well, as far as like what Maria said, obviously SEO world has constantly evolving, but this AI revolution is definitely has changed the landscape drastically. So that you need to be even more intentional, not get lazy. Just because AI is able to give you more content doesn't mean you could be lazy anymore. You have to be constantly auditing your overall current SEO performance, optimizing for intent more than ever before. Strongly focus on building authority, right? Being ever present everywhere, and then track the new KPIs that matters today than ever before. So hopefully this presentation was extremely useful for you. If you need more additional help, we have some links here on this page, oneims.com/meeting. Feel free to set aside some time so we can review your current SEO efforts and performance. We have one quiz, a poll, but I don't know, in the interest of time, maybe we won't probably have much time for a response here. But other than that, that's a wrap for our presentation today. I'd say stay focused, stay engaged. This industry is drastically changing, but be focused on providing as much value to your customers by answering their deep questions, right? Even the questions that they don't know even what to ask. Those are the questions you need to be thinking about creating content around, and be ever present everywhere. That's the end goal of your marketing efforts. And thank you so much for joining us, and we'll keep you posted on upcoming webinars in the days ahead.